Here's one of my favorite Sufi stories. It's about a man called Mojud. And he worked in a little grocer's in a small country town. And what was extraordinary was when anybody walked into his grocery store, they felt uplifted. They felt good. Even if they came in with a problem, it seemed to disappear when they went in. And if ever they asked him a question, his reply was always helpful, loving and caring. And they came to see him as enlightened. So they got together and said, let's go and ask him who his master was. So they all go into the shop and say, Mojud, tell us, who was your master? How did you get enlightened? And he looks very puzzled and he doesn't want to talk about himself. And he said, I haven't had a master. I don't know what you mean. So they said, well, tell us about your life. So this is his story. He was a clerk, an office worker in a small village in the tax office. And he was walking home one day to lunch and he met a man who was dressed all in green. Now in the Sufi tradition, this man is called Khidra and he's the inner guide. But there he was standing and Khidra said to him, go back and resign and meet me at the river. So Mojud was very disoriented. He had a job. Not only he had a job, but he was in line to become the chief tax collector, which is a big job in a small town. But something inside him said, I'll do it. So he went back, resigned. Everybody thought he was mad, but very pleased, because that means somebody else could get the job. He thought he was mad. And he went down to the river and stood there. And Khidra appeared, who said, take off all your clothes and jump in the river. Mojud looked at the river, swollen, roaring, dangerous river, and still something said, I'll do it. In he jumped. He got carried down the river miles and miles and miles, and eventually the ferryman who was crossing the river saw him, caught him, pulled him out, took him back to his hut, and he said, you're very lucky to be alive. That's a very dangerous river. And then the ferryman found out that Mojud could read and write, and he was so pleased. He said, I've always wanted to read and write. You teach me to read and write, and I'll teach you about the river. Mojud was so happy. He loved the river, the sounds, the birds, the wind in the trees, meeting people and taking them across. He was having a wonderful life. And in the middle of one night, there was Khidra standing at the end of the bed and said, time to move. Leave this place and go and stand by the road. He did that, standing by the road, nothing happening, until a farmer came by with his cart. And the farmer said, do you have anything to do today? Come and help me in the market. So he did. And he helped so well, the farmer said, great, you're a great worker. Come back to my farm and work on my farm. Mojud was so happy. The farm was wonderful. The animals getting up early in the morning and lovely life. Until there was Khidra again saying, time to move on. Take the money you've earned, go to the next town and become a merchant. So that's what he did. And he became a very successful merchant. So successful, he thought, time to settle down now. Buy a house, get married, have some children. Guess what? Khidra appeared again and said, leave everything and walk and walk and walk to the next town. And that's what he did. He walked to the next town and got a job in the grocer's. And he said, that's my story. It could be your story as well. It was my story. That's what happened to me. I got these wonderful positions where I was set for the rest of my life. And suddenly something said, move on. Time and time again. That's what happened just in 2007. I was having a wonderful time. I love the groups. I love the people. I love the energy and the atmosphere and the love. And suddenly it said, it's over. If you listen, you'll hear you have a khidra inside you. Just listen. And if you're not attached, if you're not stuck to your outside things, you'll find your next step is there. And usually the next step is not where you're going, it's where you're not to be anymore. Disconnect. And the next level just unfolds in front of you. Just listen. Listen. And you'll get a sense of what's finished. And this wonderful opening on the inside of not knowing.